That's degrading Islam actually. Taking the pristine teachings away. You understand? And if you don't get that youth to go by Quran and Sunnah, then he's going to follow the norms set by the Western secular world. Am I right or wrong? Right. Then, illicit sexual relations. I told you what is the difference between adultery and fornication. Am I right? It's ibadah within the bounds of marriage. Okay? To have sexual relations is ibadah within the bounds of marriage. Even the dress code is decided by the Quran. Islam doesn't stop you from fashion and so on. But Islam is very particular about the morality in your dressing. Understand? So we must be very broad. We must think very broad. Now, to close up, and if you are married, and the code of conduct with your spouse must be such that there must be you mustn't give any gap of suspicion between the two. You know about that? Because suspicion is one of the things that causes divorce. And what did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say? Whether it's Muslim or anybody, amongst the most permissible thing, the worst is divorce. Who becomes the innocent victim? The children. And then you will get the cycle of juvenile delinquency carrying on because the children will be thrown on the street as they grow up. Right. In conclusion, I like to say something that the Western secular powers and also some other denominations and some atheists, whatever the case may be, they look at Islam very differently. They think that the women are in bondage. What? Bondage. So Professor Ansari Rahmatullah alayhi ta'ala, very great professor, is late. He made a very nice statement, but I'll put it in my own words. I can't remember it. He says, you see, the West perceives the woman as shiny pebbles to be thrown on the shore and trampled upon. After being admired, trampled upon. Okay, use and abuse. But Islam has given the woman the status of a diamond. And where would you keep a diamond? Thank you very much. Thank you. It was nice being with you. And what little I could give you, I gave you. Because you see, my timekeeper is, he wants to sacrifice me now, you know. Of course, he's a good man. So, if you have some questions quickly, don't ask difficult questions. I don't have all the answers. Oh, royalty. Royalty. I told you, you see the Jews and then they defied the authority of prophethood. But remember, the prophets were leaders, political leaders too. But with the changes in scriptures and so on, they formed a dictatorship. When I say royalty, meaning kingship now. You know, a group of people. We are the kings, we are so and so. Okay? So people had to listen to them because by virtue of being citizens of the state. But when it came to sovereign power, the highest power this is, but it's singular. So Allah uses sovereignty, He uses we in order for the human mind to understand that He is one, but for the human mind to understand how supreme He is, how big He is. You got it now?
Ahmed Shaikh was, before I became the director 2 years ago at IPCI, he was the director for a few years, and now he is one of the directors in this college. Ahmed has got a long history of involvement within the community in various projects, with working with youth, different forums, also on Palestine groupings. He is an MBA graduate. I don't know what was his undergraduate degree, but Ahmed will be presenting to us on aspects of leadership and possibly on strategy. So without any further this thing, I hand over to Ahmed.
Bismillah. Jazakallah khair. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله.
Can I ask you maybe just to get up a little bit? Sometimes if you're sitting for a while, you need to take a deep breath, stretch a little bit, etc. Yeah. Just stretch a little bit, move your hands, don't punch anybody. Brothers, if you can sit down, thank you very much. We've got a discussion, as Mahmoud mentioned. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership and strategy. This is something we teach at this business school. And in business schools around the world, leadership is one of the most taught and researched subjects for the last 100 years. So can I ask quickly, if you can hear me at the back as well, how many of you have studied leadership at any level in higher education or short courses or executive education? Just raise your hands. So a number of you have been exposed to leadership training, alhamdulillah. And a lot of the leadership training that is being taught in the 21st century by universities and training institutions is what we call post-industrial leadership. Leadership that was designed after the Industrial Revolution. It had a major change around after World War II and around 1970s and 80s. So there were various leadership theories being taught throughout the last 1 century. Okay? Am I speaking too fast? No, it's okay. I want to do something a little different today. I want to move away from that traditional leadership training. I want to try and borrow from our heritage. Is there something within our heritage as Muslims that we can draw as leadership lessons that would add value to the contemporary world, that would add value to the complexity, that would add value to the challenge that not just the Ummah has, but humanity has in the 21st century? As many of you would know, a very oft-repeated verse of Surah Baqarah, the 2nd chapter of the Quran, it has 286 verses, Surah Baqarah. Right in the middle of that surah, in verse number 143, Almighty Allah gives us a mission. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. For what purpose? لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. So here the Quran is giving us, firstly, a status as an ummah that is on wasatiyya. But for what purpose? لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. So what is our mission? Our mission is to look after the destiny of humanity, an-nas, right? So that means that the destiny of mankind, all of humanity, is tied to the destiny of this ummah. Subhanallah. It's a tremendous responsibility. It's a leadership responsibility. So besides the leadership theories of the Western world for the last 100 years, is there something else that we have that we can borrow from our own heritage that we could give to humanity? Because Allah has given us this tremendous responsibility to lead humanity min al-dhulumat ila nur, from darkness to light. So I will paint a little bit of a picture about where is humanity today if we take a snapshot of the world, right? And then what kind of leadership would be appropriate to take care of the challenges that humanity is facing? So that's the essence of our discussion. Everybody okay? Fresh enough? I need you to think along with me, inshallah. And secondly, I need you to interact with me. So this is not what we call a monologue. You know what's a monologue? It's just a one-way discussion. This has to be dialogue, inshallah. So please, if I appeal to you to participate with me, I want you to do that. And feel free to stop me. I want you to complete the sentence. I see some of you have notes in front of you. I want you to take 30 seconds and complete the sentence for me. It's a game we call Complete the Sentence Game. So just take a few seconds and I want you to not think about it deeply. Just whatever comes from your gut. Complete the sentence for me. Leadership is about what? No, you write it down. And at the end of the presentation, I want you to do the same exercise for me. So I'm giving you the answer to the exam. At the end, you're going to answer the same question. Maybe you will have a different answer at the end of the session. So take 20 to 30 seconds, write a statement. I'm going to ask you to read it out at the end of the lecture. Leadership is about what? You can write it in English, bil Arabiya, I don't know what other languages you speak. Any language that you're comfortable with. Just the key words. And look up when you're done so I know you're finished. Right. I'm going to give you one definition That's a reasonably modern definition of leadership. You don't have to write it down. Leadership is about, don't write it down. If you want, we'll give you this presentation. There's no copyright, okay? So you will have, inshallah, a copy of these slides when you finish. Is the capacity to inspire a group of people to pursue or to follow an articulated vision to ensure continuous cooperation and realization of this vision. Sounds like a mouthful, and I try to highlight just some of the key words. Leaders must be able to inspire, to motivate a group of people for a vision, for continuous cooperation, and you must achieve what you're inspiring people to achieve. You can't motivate and not achieve the goals, right? So it is finally about realizing that vision. And we will give you some examples from the Quran and from the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, where you see this kind of leadership style coming through, inshallah. We're trying to just give you a very broad framework, and inshallah then we'll become interactive with this. Leadership, a lot of modern leadership theory always talks about power and authority, isn't it? For those of you who may have been exposed to modern leadership theory, you'll find there's a lot of power and authority that comes into leadership. And one of the theories in leadership is called the trait theory. T-R-A-I-T. Have you heard that word? Sometimes you pronounce it as trait, but you say trait theory of leadership. So this trait theory, which is the modern theory of leadership, says, you see, some people are natural born leaders. Depending on how tall you are, maybe you have a deep voice, and you have a certain style of talking, you are charismatic, you carry yourself in a certain way, then you're just a natural born leader. And some people who believe in the trait theory will say, look at Obama as an example, the American president. He just seems to inherently have leadership qualities. The way he carries himself, the way he articulates, the way he speaks, the way he interacts with people. You notice he also has got an interesting body language, President Obama. Whenever he meets somebody, Junaid, let me greet you. If you look at President Obama, when he meets, he always meets, are you looking? At a distance. You see, he's shy to meet me, right? But I'm showing power. Can you see? I'm extending my hand. I'm not going here and meeting him like this. This is very personal. So you'll see, he always meets with his hand outstretched. After he's then shown you his power, he'll bring you closer and he'll pat you on the back. When you pat somebody on the back, you're also showing them control. You only pat when you feel you have some sense of superiority or you have the ability to pat somebody. It's like you're congratulating. Only people in power can do that. Somebody who is an underdog can't congratulate the senior. It's just the way human beings are. So people who believe in trait theory, they say, you see, there are certain personalities. They just inherently are good leaders because of the way they carry themselves. My view is very different, and inshallah we will talk about my view, but it's not just about power and authority. It also is quite complex, and we take it for granted. The last point. Leadership is something we talk about in a very sterile way, in a very linear way. But leadership is a very complex subject. And inshallah we'll get into some of the principles just now. Everybody okay so far? Sorry. I'm going to show you in 3 slides traditional leadership theory. You don't have to write this, you don't have to remember this, it's available all over. I want to show you 100 years of research on leadership in 3 slides. All the traditional theories. You see on the top, trait theory. On the left-hand side, transformational, behavioral, contingency, invitational, transactional, X, Y, Z, whatever. There's tons of theories on leadership, right? Then there's change leadership. Then there's different styles of leadership. Then there are factors that affect leadership. There's countless amount of information available on traditional leadership theory. And when you go back one, when you look at types of leadership, you heard of these before: autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire, paternalistic. Have you heard some of these terms? Those of you who've studied leadership, right? Factors affecting style. One more slide, Janine. And factors affecting style, risk factors, business factors, necessity for change. All of this brothers and sister, I see one sister here, all of this has now become irrelevant. Has become irrelevant. You see, there's something very significant that has happened in the last few years in the world. In 2008, we got up one morning and we heard that the world has gone bankrupt. You remember the 2008 crisis? It's called the global financial meltdown, the global financial crisis. And suddenly there were major issues happening in the business world. All the financial markets were seeing red on the screen. They called it a bloodbath. It was a very dramatic event, mainly for the developed world, the industrialized economies. Suddenly the world ran out of what they call liquidity. There was no more money in the system. Although we live in a virtual economy, everybody is following me. And you know the issues, right? So all of the leadership theory that built the post-industrial world, in my view, and a number of other people around the world are saying, that was the old world. After 2008, we are in a new world. Capitalism as a theory, according to many people, has now failed. Capitalism has failed. All the textbooks written about capitalism, they now have to be burnt. We have to rewrite textbooks on modern leadership theory, how to run organizations, how to manage corporations, how to manage economies. All of the macroeconomics and microeconomics we've been teaching for 100 years has become irrelevant. Because today, brothers and sisters, we trade every day in financial markets trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. But the lives of people don't get any better. You see that? What is the basis of economics? You trade in goods and services, isn't it? You exchange goods and services so that people's lives get better, so that humanity is better. But the level of misery in humanity has never been worse than in history, known history. But this is the most money the world has had ever in human history. So isn't there something wrong, fundamentally wrong, with the way we're managing the societies, globally, communities, countries, economies? Right, so therefore, what is really leadership preparing you for? What world will you be leading? What context will you find yourself? Whatever country you come from, Thailand, Jordan, Saudi, Africa, South Africa, what communities would you inherit that you would need to provide leadership for? And this is an important part of leadership, context. Leadership only works in a context. Are you with? You know what context means, huh? Depending on the state of affairs in your community, society, organization, leadership works in a context. So let's define the context for leadership in the 21st century. Then we'll ask ourselves, what leadership style is required then to manage in this context? Everybody together. Am I going too fast? No? Is it too academic? No? It's fine? طيب. So let's define this world. We do what is called an environmental scan. You know, in modern management theory, we talk to people about doing an environmental scan. You know what's an environmental scan? You look at the external environment. You know what it's made up of? Political factors, economic factors, social factors, legal factors. For those of you who've done postgraduate studies in management, we call this the Pastel analysis. All the factors in the external environment. So let's do this. Right. Take a timeline for the last 60 years. Brothers, I want you to think along with me and sister, right? Let's look at the last 50 to 60 years alone. We are now living apparently in the age of enlightenment. Modern man is saying to us, we have arrived as human beings. We understand human beings. We understand business. We've created the industry, industrial revolution. We've gone to space. We've gone to Mars. People now live in the International Space Station for months outside of the Earth's atmosphere. They defy the laws of space. The Indians have now gone to Mars. You know, India has launched a satellite that will orbit Mars for 9 months. That satellite, brothers, was traveling at a speed of 28,000 kilometers per hour. Okay? 28,000 kilometers per hour. this satellite that's gone to Mars. But when we talk about Isra wal Mi'raj, and you talk about the ascension of the Prophet ﷺ, modern man says it's impossible. How can one man from Mecca go to Jerusalem into the high heavens and return in one night? It's like the Quraysh said to the Prophet, it's not possible. You know it's not possible. But you see, what wasn't possible 14 centuries ago, today seems like child's play. So what world are we inheriting? Man has created such complications on earth, as one French philosopher said it very nicely. We have learned to fly in the sky like birds and dive under the oceans like fish, but we have failed to live like ordinary human beings on earth. You see the complexity of the 21st century, right? So we are in the age of enlightenment, all the science and technology. There's a thing called transhumanism. Transhumanism tells us, biologists are saying, you can design, listen carefully. Sallu Rasulah. You can design the baby you want. Before conception, you go to the appropriate specialist and you tell the specialist, I want a baby to have blonde hair. I want the baby to have this color eyes. The baby must be athletic or must have good mathematical ability. I want this baby to become a physicist. You design the baby and they will, in inverted commas, create the baby for you. Transhumanism. This is how far modern man has gone in attempting to control the destiny of humanity. I'm just trying to paint a picture of the world in which we live, right? Secularism, atheism, and humanism. And you see ... There's many other isms around us. For those of you involved in da'wah, there are many different challenges that you will need to provide leadership for. What are you really talking to communities about? I don't know if you know a person called Professor Richard Dawkins. You heard of him? How many have heard of Professor Richard Dawkins? Just raise your hand. Some of you have. If you are Da'iyah, you have to know Professor Richard Dawkins. He's become, in inverted commas, listen carefully, he's become the prophet of atheism in the 21st century. He's written a book called The Great God Delusion. Professor Dawkins says, you know, all of humanity, they're gone crazy. They actually believe that there's a God Almighty. They actually believe that there's a supreme being who is in control of everything. Richard Dawkins is saying, he's a professor, he's a physicist, scientist. He says mankind has gone crazy to think that there is a God Almighty. So how do you talk to people who are students of Richard Dawkins? How do you introduce Islam to them? What you going to say? That the Prophet is Khatamun Nabiyyin, he received revelation in the cave of Hira, and the angel spoke to him. You know what they'll say? Mushkila. Mushkila kabir. They'll say these fairy tales. Richard Dawkins had a program on Al Jazeera recently. I don't know if some of you watch Al Jazeera English, but there was a nice debate at the Oxford Union. And he was being interviewed by a Muslim journalist. So the journalist asked him, Professor Dawkins, what do you think will save humanity? So Professor Dawkins, without thinking, he says, if religion would just disappear from the face of the earth. What was his answer? If religion would just disappear. Leave mankind without God and rules and wahi and Quran. And just take it all away and mankind will figure it out. How do you engage with the people in the 21st century who believe they live in this age? And Richard Dawkins is one of many people around the world who say what you see is what you can believe. You can't believe in al-ghaib. You can't believe in something you can't see and touch. You can't believe in something you can't experience. So how do you give da'wah to these people? Very challenging, isn't it so? Okay, so that is sort of the so-called brave new world that all of you young leaders are going to be facing, inshallah. Financial meltdown, we spoke about that. Let's go further down. There's some interesting things happening. Again, as da'iyah, you need to be careful. The rise of the Christian right. If you go to Europe today, Western Europe, these are the leaders of the free world. They don't want any more migrants coming from Muslim lands, mainly Muslim lands. You know, Tunisians are going to which country in Europe? France. The Algerians are going to France. So many of the former colonies, the people are traveling every day. People are trying to cross from North Africa into Southern Europe, isn't it? From Al-Maghrib into Italy, Spain, other places. This year alone, more than 2,500 people drowned in that narrow strip of ocean, 14 kilometers between Africa and Europe. Only 14 kilometers, right? 2,500 people drowned trying to get across to Europe. And all European parties are now having nationalists who are winning elections. You heard of Geert Wilders? You heard of this politician, Geert Wilders? No? You must just Google him. Geert Wilders is one of the leading politicians in Western Europe, is saying the Quran is a false document. We don't need this Quran. Sharia, and people want to wear hijab and niqab and all of. We don't need these Muslims. If we just take away Islam, Denmark will be perfect. And politicians like that in France are saying the same thing. Belgium, Italy. Italy is very interesting. Italy says, why do you need a mosque? If you pray to a God that is not seen, why do you need a mosque? Just pray anywhere. No more mosques. In Switzerland, they're very upset. So the minarets are very tall in Switzerland. Huh? They say no more minarets. It's affecting the architecture of Switzerland. So these are all of the challenges we are facing in the 21st century. So the rise of the Christian right, social inequality. Let me tell you about social inequality. I'm just giving you a picture of the world we find ourselves in. The 3 top billionaires. How many? 3 top billionaires in America. They combined personal wealth. Listen carefully. Their combined personal wealth is more than the economic output of 44 developing countries. Let me repeat that. The top 3 billionaires in the US, they combined personal wealth, not corporate wealth, personal wealth. What they own personally is more than the total gross domestic product of 44 developing countries. 3 individuals. And more than 2 billion people go hungry every day. Even in America, California, which is the richest state in America, and the 7th largest economy in the world. California, the richest American state, the 7th largest economy in the world. 33% of its people go hungry every night. Come? 1/3. But the richest state in the US, which is the leading economy in the world, 1/3 of its people are hungry every night. Something is wrong with the condition of humanity in the 21st century. So now you see why all the leadership theory we've learned has become part of the old world. There's something new required for all of you to be leaders in the 21st century. Everybody okay so far? You want to stand up and take another stretch break? It's okay? طيب. Let's go on. So as an ummah, as people who are part of khayr ummah, not just an ummah, khayr ummah, the best of peoples evolved for mankind. What is our value proposition? This is the term we use from marketing. You know what value proposition means? Anybody? What does value proposition mean? If I ask you, what's your value proposition? What am I trying to get from you? Yes? Yes, thank you. It's also sort of, as Brother Mahmoud said, that plus what do you have to offer in simple language? What do you have to offer as an ummah? You're a khayra ummah. So what is your value proposition? When the world, the decline is so rapid, the challenges are so complex, anti-Muslim sentiment is so unsettling, we can't have superficial discussions about leadership. Borrowing from the old world of post-industrial leadership is not good enough anymore. Trade theory, contingency theory, transformation. No. How do you fundamentally change humanity? How do you bring khayr to humanity? How do you play a role as one that is shuhada ala nas? Allah will ask us on the day of Qiyamah. You're witnesses to humanity. What was the condition of humanity? What did you do to change that condition in humanity? It's a very serious challenge. So therefore, what's our value proposition? How do we change the world? Let's go on. I want to go through a few principles with you. Where do you start? If this is the complexity in the world, and this is the problem and the challenge we face as an ummah, and you are all young leaders in your own right, where do you begin to change the world? How? Where do you start? So you start with yourself. Everybody agrees. Start with yourself, those closest to you. You know Stephen Covey. You heard of Stephen Covey? Yeah, he writes a lot on leadership and other things. He talks about a sphere of influence. A what? A sphere of influence. You're a person, you are surrounded by family, maybe you work with people in your neighborhood, other people you know. That's your sphere of influence. Work within your sphere of influence, then try to extend your sphere of influence. So you continue, and this is the essence of da'wah. The Prophet, where did he start his da'wah? In the early days of Makkah. With his family. After his family, then he talked to the tribes and the clans, etc., etc. Some say he went to Ta'if and then to Medina, etc. Right? So continue to extend. So when you start, as the ayah, you've heard this countless times before in Surah Ra'd, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. So this is the starting point. There's a Quranic solution. Start within yourself, right? Right, now these are the principles. If you have to write this down, you're going to miss a lot of our discussion. So I want you to just listen and engage with me. We're going to talk about the Quran, talk about the Seerah, and we talk about leadership as an integrated whole. And I promise you, inshallah, you will have these slides with you, okay? First principle. Is that the first one? Let's go up one. Right. First principle, we talked about Ta'if just now. You know, after the Prophet ﷺ had sort of given up with the clans in Mecca, he began to look for what market is called new markets. And the one new market was the people of Ta'if. He said perhaps they would be more, sallallahu they would be more amenable to the message. Ta'if. So he went there with whom? Who did he travel with to Ta'if? Which companion?
One of the Sahabis, but
Nah.
not Abu Bakr.
Not Abu Bakr. Who was with the Prophet ﷺ? Zayd bin Haritha, right? They traveled to the people of Ta'if, and you know what happened in Ta'if? What did the people do? They rejected his message, and they chased him out, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's running across the desert, and he is injured, he is bleeding, etc. And then he takes some rest in a vineyard. You know the seerah, right? So we're not going to discuss the details. And he makes a very impassioned dua in this vineyard. And I'm sure all of you know it. I've just taken the first part of the dua in English. Oh Allah, I complain to you of my weakness and humiliation before the people. You are the most merciful. You are the Lord of the weak, and you are my Lord too. And he cries in this dua to Allah, complaining of what? Not the people of Ta'if. You see, it's not here. He's not complaining about the Quraysh. He's not complaining about any of the clans and tribes of Makkah or the surrounding regions. He's talking about who? Himself. Naam. So the first principle is of this new leadership style we need to begin to propose to each other. Introspect regularly. It's a human default to blame the other party. You see, the state of the Ummah is because of this, and the Yahud, and the Nasara, and the Israelis, and Zionists. Everybody's problem except it's our problem. But the first principle of leadership is introspect regularly. Here the Prophet ﷺ is bleeding, he's injured, he's been rejected in Ta'if, he's been rejected by and large in Makkah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He has enough reason to complain about other people, but he introspects. He says, oh Allah, I'm weak. And you are my Lord, and you are the Lord of the weak. If you are not disappointed with me, the dua continues, then I cannot for the rest of the world. So leaders, Muslim leaders in the 21st century, the first principle is become self-aware. Become mindful of your own strengths and weaknesses before you reflect and deflect this attention to people around you. So become self-aware, mindful, or introspect regularly. This is really an important principle that I can tell you many leadership theories will not talk to us about this. You won't find it in Western leadership theory. Okay? Tayyib. Everybody okay? Any comments? Any suggestions? No? Okay. That's leadership principle 1. Leadership principle 2. Immediately after this incident in this vineyard, he's returning to Makkah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And tell me what happens along the way. He's visited by the angel, Jibreel. And what was the interaction between the angel and the Prophet ﷺ in that incident? So between these two mountains, we will crush the people of Taif. Here is divine assistance to meet the need of the Prophet ﷺ. So easy when you're feeling rejected to say, yes, go and do it. As a human being, would you not feel so? If somebody injures you, the natural reaction, unfortunately, is to injure back. Not so. Not for the Prophet ﷺ. He said, there is no need, and we are paraphrasing his words. If they don't believe, perhaps the generation after them will believe. So what is the second principle? The second principle is hope for change. I can tell you again, brothers, with all respect, in my limited reading of leadership for the last 20 or more years, these seemingly basic principles don't come through in leadership theory. They tell you about how to be charismatic. But charisma doesn't help you often. Charisma is for your own ego. It's for your own hawa. What's the word? Hawa, isn't it? Your nafs. Charisma will not bring relief to humanity. Charisma will not help 2 billion people get food every day. Charisma will not provide clean drinking water so that 1,000 children die every day because they drink water from the rivers. Charisma won't help you. Soft power won't help you. A lot of the modern leadership theories about being effective in a corporation won't help you. We need basic human principles because we agreed you start with change within yourself, isn't it? So can you remember what is the first principle? We discussed it just now. Start with yourself. Tayyib. The second principle is hope for change. You know why? The reason is at the bottom. No human condition is final. You see, in Islam, we don't believe in fatalism. You know what's fatalism? Anybody knows what fatalism means? Taqdeer.
Yeah,
Qadr.
yes.
But fatalism, yes, brother. Blaming the fate, not faith, huh? Fate. You know, in Hinduism, there is the principle of fatalism is very important. They say, you see, I'm poor, I was meant to be poor. Khalas. There is no need for me to be working hard, become entrepreneurial, go out and try to change my this is my condition. It was destined for me to be this way. In Islam, there's no fatalism. You know, there's a beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. If you knew the hour was about to come, meaning Qiyamah, and you had a little seedling in your hand, what did the Prophet advise? Plant, but you know it's going to be destroyed. What is human logic? How can you do an activity when you know it's going to be destroyed? كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. So why should you plant? Allah is trying to show, and through the Prophet ﷺ here, no human condition is final. If you intend to do something constructive, go and do it. Don't ask yourself, but how, what is the value, it's no point now, it's too, no, none of that. If you want to plant a seedling of a palm tree and you know the hour was about to come, go and plant the seed. So there's no fatalism in Islam. No human condition is final. Everything is changeable, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Isn't it so? So the second principle is hope for change. Never regard your situation or humanities as being final. Everybody okay so far? You sure you're not tired? We're not speaking too fast. This is not academic. Okay, let's go on. Third principle. Everybody knows this ayah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Beautiful ayah. قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرُ إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Very powerful verse talking about Allah having the power and the kingdom, and He gives power to whom He wills. And see what the ayah says. Allah doesn't say He takes back power. Tanzi'. What does that mean? Huh? He snatches it back. He gives power, but He snatches it back from whom He wills. He gives dignity and izzah to whom He wills, and He'll take away, because in His hands is all power. So all the talk in modern leadership theory about power and exercising power, for those of you who have studied leadership, deferent power, referent power, expert power, all nonsense. Power is with whom? Allah. You are merely a conduit. You are merely a vehicle. Power is not with you. as Western leadership theory teaches us. Power is with Allah. So what should you do? You should temper your power. You know what temper means? What does temper mean?
Deal with it.
Moderate it. Moderate the power. You know why? It's not yours. You ultimately don't have power. You are merely a vehicle. You are a Khalifa only. So temper your power, because all power is with Allah. And He can change the condition of humanity. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isn't it? So the third principle is temper your use of power, because no human power is absolute. No human power is absolute. But again, modern leadership theory won't teach you this. It'll talk to you about using power, exercising your power, and leading through power, letting people know you are powerful. Then you influence them, etc. No, no, no. Our view is very different. If you know that all power is for Allah and you are merely a vehicle, you need to temper. So what is the first principle? Quickly. Introspection. Naam. Second one. Hope for change, because no human condition is final. What is the third one? It's easy because you can see it, right? Temper your power, because all power is from Allah. No human power is absolute. Tayyib. Fourth principle. This is a very nice, simple example. Sallu ala Rasulillah. You know the story of Yusuf, alayhi salam. Naam? You all know the story? Which chapter of the Quran? Naam? Oh, it's there, right? The answer is there. Surah Yusuf. And as the Quran says, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. The best of stories Allah is revealing to us. So you know the beautiful story of Yusuf alayhi salam. And you know his dreams, and the brothers threw him in the well. Then he was sold into slavery, got into Egypt, and then he was adopted, and he got into a little bit of difficulty with the wazir's wife. Then he landed in prison, and then he interpreted the dream. You remember? And then the minister or prime minister or whatever of Egypt says, Yusuf, you can have any ministry in the land. Choose what ministry you want, because you have this ability. You remember he foresaw there'll be 7 years of harvest and then 7 lean years, etc., etc. And he interpreted the dream. So he was given the free choice. And how did Yusuf choose? قَالَ جَعَلْنِي عَلَى خَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ. The last part is very important. Set me over the storehouses of the land, for indeed I will guard them as one that knows their importance. So the fourth principle is competence. Yusuf alayhi salam didn't get this position or demand it because he was a prophet, because he could interpret dreams, because he was very handsome, and he was very handsome, mashallah. He asked for it on what basis? Technical competence. Inni hafidhun alim. Knowledge. And your technical competence is really important in your leadership style. Not because who you are, where you come from, what your family name is, what your nationality. No. Inni hafidhun alim. So the technical competence is the fourth principle. Everybody okay? Fine. Any questions? Any questions? You remember, I'm going to ask you all the four just now. Huh? Okay. Fifth principle. This is a really important one, but you have to listen very carefully. You know what picture this is? Do you know what picture this is? Uhud. It's in Medina. Can those of you sitting at the back can see it? Now, this is the mountain of Uhud, and you see what is in front of here. You know this area? The graveyard of the martyrs of Uhud. You're all familiar with the site? Now, so this was the battle that took place roughly in the 3rd year after migration. Isn't it so? Battle of Uhud. And you know what happened in this battle? How did the Muslim army fare at the end of this battle?